Alright, settle down, settle down. You're gonna get to see them, just relax. Let me get through an actual analysis. Can't show it without context, or else YouTube's gonna probably take it down. So let's get through it. This movie is slow to build up to death, and then once death happens, it's over super quickly and is almost unsatisfying, because of how fast they die. Halloween 2 is probably one of the better sequels that I've seen. Not because it does anything different or new, but it does the same thing, just better. In the first Halloween, they had these long, drawn-out shots that just really slowed the movie down, made you really want something to happen, but nothing ever did. Plus, only like 3 people died. It was really boring. But you can't have that and just use that for horror unless you're building to something. But again, it is building to something for 54 minutes. This Halloween, however, much different. So, starting off right away, however, you see that this movie seems to have been a bit rushed. You have a lot of bad decisions, which is where we now start to get the dumb teenage trope. Again, remember, target audience for horror, age 17 to 25 males, because usually they'll bring a woman with them, and they'll get scared. Scenes like this in the movie prove that logic in horror is starting to go away. People are starting to make worse and worse decisions. Like, if you turn around and you see the door open after conveniently being on call about a serial killer, my first guess would be either to A, run, because he's probably in the house, or B, call someone. Get back on the phone. Let them know you're in trouble, etc. Even if you die, at least someone will know that you're dead, rather than just be killed. We never even know what happens to her. Do her parents find her? We don't know. It's really important that actors understand how other actors are going to react to their action. For example, if your character has to close his daughter's eyes, maybe tell her to just shut her eyes herself as you slide your hand down. Do not grab her face, because then you get this scene in which her face scrunches up more because you're touching her eyes, and her face is going to react accordingly. You can even see her eyes still adjusting with her eyes closed. It's like a little kid trying to pretend they're asleep. It's kind of funny, really. It's adorable. She's all dead and alive at the same time. It's really weird. Of course, you see things like the guard. You know he's going to die. They draw it out. And he dies pretty, like, a little clunk. But that's neither here nor there. The real juicy stuff happens with the Doctor. The Doctor is like our hero, anti-hero, who is trying to solve this problem. Now, he's behaving way out of normal. In fact, in any other situation, we'd most likely see him as the bad guy. But here we don't, because Michael is the bad guy, because he has no emotion whatsoever that we can tell. Now, after this scene in which they get hit by a car and everyone thinks he's dead, they think he's going to go home, and they think he's dead, we get to see this scene. Our sex scene for the movie. Remember the movie? Remember the scene from earlier? Yeah, we're gonna go back to it now, because there's actually quite a lot happening in this scene that I can unpack. But do know that the nudity is not going to stick around. I am going to censor it a bit. So enjoy it while it lasts. There you go. There's your nudity. Now, I'm going to have to cover it up a bit. The reason I want to unpack this scene is for 3 reasons. 1, there's no music. Normally in a horror movie, you have music to set up the atmosphere. This is all silent, rather than, the sound of the actors and footsteps and, water. But it's the setup to the scene that's really interesting. So you have the nudity. They're in the tub. And then he gets out. She gets out too. I thought they were going to boil alive. I've never seen this movie before. I thought they were going to boil alive. Like a Final Destination type scene. But instead it got weirder. So as he's over there, and he's, on the other side of the glass, you can't really see anything. And he's messing with the water. You have her in the foreground, partial, sometimes topless, sometimes not, sometimes exposing, sometimes not, while she's drying off. But why? When you have a death in the background. See, remember the age I mentioned again? 17 to 25. A teenager's not going to be able to look like that SpongeBob meme where he's looking at one scene and the other. Or one, the foreground and the background. You're going to have to pick one. And I think the reason they did that is because this scene, like many other deaths in this movie, are quick. The deaths are quick, like unnaturally quick. My dad works in a hospital. I believe he's also an EMT. I know he's a fire chief, but I think he said he'd go on runs before. But more to the point, I simply asked him if you could choke a person out this quickly. And he said no. You couldn't even... There's a good chance you wouldn't even lose consciousness in 10 seconds. And that's how long it takes. From him grabbing his throat to him dropping and going limp. It's 10 seconds flat. When you have that happening, as is the point with the scalpel, an exaggerated death where she is picked up by a scalpel, one hammer shot to the head, which I agree would kill, but then there's no reason to hang him, because that's kind of weird and redundant. The single needle to the eye, which, by the way, if the needle is that long, there's a good chance it wouldn't kill her, or kill him, rather. He'd probably be fine. Oh, and then that makes this woman's death herself an exaggeration. Now, the big thing is that she's being burned at the same time. 100 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe, is what that water was. If it's Celsius, that's different. Let me double check real quick. So it is Fahrenheit. It is Fahrenheit. The boiling point for water is 212 degrees, right? The temperature in which to burn skin off, like within seconds. So 120 degrees for 5 minutes, 140 degrees for 30 seconds, and 150 within 2 seconds. We don't see that throughout this entire death scene. Okay, so we are at the 120 degree mark going to 140. So we're not at 150. 52:52 is her death time. She starts to get drowned at 52:23. Which brings our whopping total to roughly 30 seconds of drowning. Probably take a bit more than that, to be frank. It's not even 140 degrees yet. It's 120 degrees. So it's not going to boil your skin to a crisp, as it's doing in the movie. Again, it's not like a major criticism, but it is the fact that this movie is rushing death, but slow to build up. That's a big thing I'm going to put at the beginning here. This movie is slow to build up to death. And then once death happens, it's over super quickly and is almost unsatisfying. Because of how fast they die. Kid walking, boom, hit, burned alive. No scream, no nothing, dead immediately. Stabbed by a scalpel, hit by a hammer, drowned, choked out. Stabbed in her own kitchen. Hit his head and then hit his head again, I guess. Stabbed in the eye, stabbed with a catheter, stabbed in the forehead. Had his throat slit immediately.
It's time, Michael.
And blew up. There you go. It's that kind of thing of this movie just rushes into death, but then it slowly crawls into the death, and then as soon as you touch the word death, boom, it's done. Next scene. Because watch what happens, right? 52, and then boom, they're already at the next scene. There's no, like, walking away. There's no, like, him staring. There's no, like, subtle transition. It's literally just snap to the next scene. And the reason that the movie is slow is because of Michael Myers' patience. They harp on his patience the entire time. It's why he walks. It's why he's very calculating.
After 15 years?
He waited with extraordinary patience. There was a force inside him, biding its time.
Everything he does is to get people and isolate them. Works pretty well. He works the buzzers. He controls the water. He can get people separated just by noises. Also, doors don't stop him. We saw him just walk through a glass door. That was kind of cool, actually. But probably one of the best things to illustrate that Michael Myers is a slow, menacing force is not when he gets shot. It's not in the last movie. It's the movie. It's the scene in which Dr. Matrix is in the chair and the nurse sees it and she's backing up, and Michael Myers is there and he just appears. That, I think, was probably one of the best uses of tension in this movie, period. It was great. Rivaled only by when Lori, that's her name, that Lori was walking through the parking lot and then we see him at the trap at the light. Because he's far away, but he's not really in a hurry. As she's limping away and you're like, oh no. But there are multiple scenes in which you knew he was there. You saw him from the POV. You saw his shadow. You saw him in the background. That you knew he was there. You just couldn't do anything. It was that helpless notion that really drove this movie's fear factor. Another thing that was up with this movie is that Jimmy Boy falls in a thing of blood. Whatever. Happens. What shouldn't have happened, though, is when he got back into the car, his shirt is clean. That's just a minor criticism. Again, inconsistencies. That's what I'm about. So, a total of 10 people in the hospital died. Minus the girl in her house. And then minus the kid who got hit by a car. But the kid who got hit by a car wasn't really Michael Myers' fault. We'll let him pass with that one. This movie was recommended by a subscriber. I cannot find the comment, but thank you for that. And you guys can leave a comment. I always take a look at the movies that people recommend. Doesn't mean I will get to them. There was one that was like all in Spanish or Italian, and I don't speak either, and the subtitles were really bad, so I couldn't do it. On an ending note, this movie combined basically the slow, subtle, menacing crawl of an unstoppable force mixed with the hellfire of an unstoppable demon. And then there was this, like, there was this demon right here that was all about burning stuff, and then he burned alive, blah, 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 symbolism. Yeah, that one's kind of obviously fed. But Michael Myers is where we base a lot of slasher cliches on. The sex scenes, the nudity, the slow crawl, the unstoppable killer. All of these things tend to go from him. So, all in all, a classic, and probably one of the only sequels that are better than the first. But that'll do it for me. My name is That Analysis Guy. Thank you all for watching. See y'all next time. Peace.